Earning an executive MBA at Georgetown isn't the path of least resistance, but it does come with the greatest reward. Benefit from our strong alumni network, renowned faculty, DC location, and global residencies. Get started at choosegeorgetown.com/EMBA.
aquarianradio.com, and I'm your host, Janet Kira Lesson, with my co-host, Karen Christine Patrick, and panel members, Charlotte Rose Wan, and we are going to discuss, well, the episode is called Here Be Dragons, and this is part of the series of We the Anunnaki, and so we're going to look at these Dragon Annunaki family bloodlines. Karen, would you like to take over right now and tell us a little bit about today's show, please?
Yeah, I kind of got the Here Be Dragons title from the old maps when the sailors thought the earth was flat and they were afraid to go beyond a certain point, so they just said, there's dragons over here, don't go there. But it's a lot of fun for pirate maps. But the key here is that in the past few years, we've all been beginning to hear about dragon societies, and the dragon society I'm most familiar with is the White Dragon Society, and it was talked about by Benjamin Fulford. He's a English-speaking, Caucasian guy speaking for this Asian White Dragon Society, and he puts out a report every week about the status of the world-level commerce, and that's kind of really a big change for a lot of people. Normally we think of our country, like the United States GDP and all that sort of thing, but it's now been indicated by various people who follow the financial markets that there's another level above just countries competing against each other in economics. And then this came out about these dragon societies, and we're going to talk about the white, the red, and the black, and there's a few others. And we're all still kind of learning what that's about. But basically, it's the idea of these other levels of financial organizations and structures that are above the country level. So they're even above the concept of multinational corporations. So we're getting into global governance is what we're getting into. And then recently it was revealed on Aquarian Radio and also on another radio show that the Red Dragon level, what they're saying, and they came to Sasha and Janet in order to make this statement, and as far as I know they haven't made it anywhere else, is that these are Anunnaki bloodline families. So that gets very interesting because here on Aquarian Radio and We the Anunnaki series, we're often talking about the Anunnaki bloodlines as being part of the 13 families, Committee of 300, whatever have you, that does global governance of the world commerce. And so, like I said, I'll be talking about a little bit about what I know about the White Dragon Society, and you guys are talking about some other things. So go ahead. I'm passing the talking stick. Go ahead, Charlotte. Hello, Charlotte.
Oh, wait. I bet you she's on mute. Okay, she is. Sorry, Charlotte. 1 second. Let me take you off mute. Okay, come on. Let it be off mute. Oh, come on. Sorry, I was pressing the wrong button. Let's try to... Charlotte, take it away.
Yeah, do you hear me okay now?
You're on live. I had a phone call coming in, trying to ignore. At the same time, I was clicking buttons, and I was clicking the wrong button. Just take it away, Charlotte.
Well, Mercury is retrograde, so we might be having some difficulties tonight, but we're going to do this anyway.
We are. No matter what, we're going to do this.
Exactly. We've got the red dragons. The white dragons, I think, have ancient Asian ties. The black dragon family is Greater East Asia. And the green dragons, I think, have their roots in Iran or Persia, Central Asia as well, I think. We're just learning about this, too. So I recently had a very interesting experience with the Black Dragon Society. One of my associates, I'm not going to say friend, but acquaintances, sent me a link to the Black Dragon Society and was very interested in what my thoughts were on the website. And I didn't really like the feeling I got. And the message that came along with that was, make yourself, and this was for me and my husband, PJ, make yourself valuable to these people because you don't want to wind up a bottom feeder. And anytime I hear that kind of dialogue, I get a red flag. So I immediately backed out, and I said, yeah, I'm not interested in anything to do with this. And that was literally not too long before the Red Dragon Society contacted you, Janet. So I thought that was really interesting. I think we are dealing with factions here.
Interesting. There's something in Wikipedia about the Black Dragon Society, which I don't think, maybe it's a different thing. It was called 1801. Anyway, so that's something like Chinese. Okay, no, can't read that fast. Go ahead, continue. Very interesting what you just said, that we both got contacted about the same time. And I didn't have a feeling one way or the other of helpful and neutral and just like to know more. That's all. Curious. Like, they contact me. I had an agent of an agent of an agent, right? And, 3 degrees of separation. But I'd like to have more direct contact. There's part of me that would like to. The other part is like, if I did, I might have a freaked out reaction too, or freaked out reaction. Back to you.
Yeah. That's what I'm kind of getting is that it is the same. I feel it's the same root. All the dragon families have the same root source, but I think that it's different factions of the family.
Okay. Do you have any interest, Megan? People, society.
Are you tossing it back to me?
Well, I just we're testing here with the Black Dragon family, and to know what you know about the Black Dragon family.
What were you able to find out on that website, Charlotte?
It was really, to be honest, the energy from the website, I couldn't, after I had clicked on and looked around, I had to click off. I didn't like the energy at all. I couldn't go in and explore it further. So it just, I can't explain the energy that I got, but I didn't like it at all.
Okay. Well, then what about the White Dragon family?
Okay.
What do either of you know about the White Dragon? They're calling it the White Dragon Society and Black Dragon Society when you go into the Wikipedia. But go ahead.
Where you want to go for information at, or where I learned from it, was Benjamin Fulford, Fulford, and if you Google Benjamin Fulford, you'll find his messages that he comes out with every week, and he claims to be the spokesperson for the White Dragon Society. And the basic gist of it is that we've had a world global financial system that hasn't worked for everybody, right? And so now it's being dismantled. We've had a change in the World Bank. It was the IMF, International Monetary Fund, And one of the things that was involved in various financial levels was to create a new global financial instrument called the BRICS nations. It was Brazil, Russia, India, China, BRICS, and South Africa, big gold and diamond country. And what happened is that they formed an alliance to get away from the IMF. And the IMF was one of the problems they were trying to resolve. And one of them was the creation in the Nixon administration of the petrodollar. And what the petrodollar was a treaty whereby everybody in the world who bought oil had to use the dollar as the currency. And that made the American dollar, or the fiat Federal Reserve dollar, go high up in price, because everyone had to get their energy needs met by oil, and it had to be bought by the petrodollar. Well, when the BRICS nation coalition formed, they made it a priority to say, we're not going to pay for our oil with a petrodollar. We're going to use a Chinese renminbi or yuan, like they call their money, or other currencies. So that actually, they made their declaration that they were no longer going to buy oil with petrodollars, and that started last year. So one of the things that everyone needs to make a note of is it's pretty darn cool to have our gas prices be lower. Here in New Mexico, we're under $2. It's $1.75 for gas, which is like, I've never had that in my entire driving career, right? It has been that low. And part of the reason why that's happening is because the petrodollar is now no longer the king of currencies for getting energy. So this BRICS alliance has already made a huge impact in how things in the world function, and it's going to have it's a positive thing for us people driving around trying to get to our jobs and whatever. But for the people who invest in oil, we have an enormous investment in our country in oil, including military intervention. This is bad news, because now we aren't going to be able to have oil be something we count on as part of our, investment portfolio of the United States, basically. And so if you guys look up, one good source is Kawhi Lapelli. He does a blog, and he puts many things on his blog, but one of the things he religiously does is put the Benjamin Fulford reports, and that's Kailapeles, and that's his name. Excuse me, I'm trying to get the blog name just a moment, because that's a really good blog. People should pay attention to that. And it's Kailapeles, hang on, wordpress.com. And then if you look on there, you'll find the latest article about Benjamin Fulford. The full article comes out every Thursday. And the title, I won't read the whole article, but I'll read the title. And it says, "The revolution continues with a shipping freeze, a stock plunge, U.S. dollar dumping, $20 a barrel oil, and attacks on gold mines and more." So that's going to give you a really interesting view if you read his articles. And he is the spokesperson, or the non-Asian spokesperson for the White Dragon Society. And they've basically been telling about their struggles between the BRICS coalition and the IMF. But now that we're, who are these societies? Like, how high up does it go? And the fact that the Red Dragon Society has finally come out and said we are Anunnaki is big news for those of us who follow the Anunnaki story. So, Janet, I'd love to know more about that.
Okay, and just to let you know, Karen, I'm hearing a lot of feedback. And Charlotte, are you getting a lot of feedback when Karen's speaking as well?
Yes,
I hear it. I'll call back in. Okay, hang up and call right back in, and then I'll pick up. And I'm like on this screen looking at what you were talking about with the Quiet Kelly. How quiet belly.
Hey, it's Hawaiian. You should know, Janet. Okay, I'll call back in.
Password.
I'll call back in.
Call right back, and I'll put you on speaker.
Okay,
anyway, yes. I told about the revolution freezing, U.S. dollar dumping. When I had Dave Schmidt on our show, and we did a series of shows in the last month, and we were talking about the potential reset. And what they're seeing it is positive reset for humanity, and not to be perceived as negative. And there may be some makeups and some reconstruction, but they're basically reconfigure everything so the people who are on top are still at top. They are free some wealth to some individuals, so we're getting a lot of feedback here. Let me see if Karen made it back in. Here she is. Okay, let me put her back on.
Hello.
Maybe I'll call back in. Let's pass the ball to Charlotte, and I'm going to call back in and see if I can get a section. Okay? Take it away, Charlotte.
Okay. Karen, you're here with me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, getting back to the petrodollar, since, that's guided America's foreign policy in the Middle East for the last few decades, what's going to happen there, do you think?
Well, we aren't going to have an uptick in the oil petrodollar bonanza that we've had all these years. What's going to happen is this is also a step in the depression cycle. I read up in the depression of the 30s, that cycle, and during that there was a big drop in oil prices because basically the other thing going on is the economy is not picking back up. And I don't know about everybody else, but man, I measure my trips out. Even though the oil prices are low and the gas prices are low, all my other expenses are high. So I'm very careful about I don't go joyriding or anything in my car. And so as people order less stuff, we've got 200 and some odd Walmarts closing because the economy, no matter what the economists are saying and the president, our economy is still going down and down and down because of a lot of factors that we just have not had. We're coming to the end of the fiat currency being something that is going to dominate us because our economy was based on a type of currency that was fractional reserve. So basically they're counting on none of us running to the banks and getting all our money out. And then if people are watching very carefully, there's markers for our economy going down. My grandmother, who went through the Depression, she noticed how things in the store were getting more expensive and less volume. So she would turn a juice bottle over and show me how the bottom is not flat; it's curved on the bottom, or how you used to get a pound of coffee for so much, and now you get 12 ounces of coffee for so much. She was very careful to point out when the corporations, she always hated the corporations. That was her attitude coming out of the Depression. She says, those corporations, darn them. She would say, show how they were shortcutting us a little by little by little, but the food prices are staying the same or going up. So we have also like the statistics of how many millionaires we have, or one statistic that blows my mind is right now 62 individuals, human beings, own 50% of the world wealth. And the rest of us the whole entire rest of 7 billion of us have to live off half the world's wealth, and it's not distributed very well. Then I've been working on the basic income guarantee. I've been learning a lot about basic income versus the welfare state. And basically, we have job loss through, ever since the industrial age, right, because people were working on the farm, then they got farm equipment, so everyone went to the cities and worked in the factories. And then the factories were more automated until pretty soon it's all robotic. They have whole factories in Japan robotically building cars, for instance. And now we're at the internet is eliminating so many jobs. Now that job loss would not be bad because it's inventors inventing stuff to make our life better, to keep people out of dangerous factories and all that. The problem is that they didn't give the inventor dividend to the people. When an inventor invents something and he wants to make a better world, he wants the people, to his family and everyone, to have a better world. The problem is the only ones who've benefited by it has been the corporations. So they've now figured out in this, just before the recession, they started figuring out how to eliminate jobs, how to eliminate benefits, how to try to make one person do 2 jobs, and all the way up to now, they're going to be McDonald's. You walk in there's no people. It's just a machine, and you punch it in. So we're talking about even if you give people $15 an hour minimum wage, we're still dealing with robotics and the internet and technology getting rid of jobs. And in the basic income guarantee world, they say, hey, let's give everybody, a basic living and get the economy started again because now they got money to buy stuff. Well, now people have less discretionary funds, and so they're not buying any more than the basics. And so this thing is spiraling down as far as our economy goes, and the lower gas prices is partially reflecting that as well as other things. But we and I talked about something, Charlotte, that was interesting about charity, because we both worked in volunteer organizations and charity organizations, and I recently wrote a piece called "Charity is for Setbacks, Not Systematic Shortfall," meaning that charity is supposed to be if somebody's house burns down, people give them clothes and things like that. Not like every single day for decades people go to food banks and stuff. It wasn't supposed to prop up a bad economy. Charity was supposed to just help when there's a setback. And now we have charity and benefits being normal for decades, several generations even. And you had a story about that.
You mean the one here about the free store?
Yeah, about the furniture thing.
Yes, the Free Store. Well, there's an organization here where I live called the Free Store, and I thought, this is amazing. I really wanted to support this organization. But then as I delved into it, I found out that they collect all of these things from the community, they put those in a warehouse, and then they have a back room that only the employees are allowed in. And they take all of the things that no one would want, and they put them out in the front, and that's what they get to the community. And then I have not delved far enough into it, but I'm assuming that the employees probably get their first pick at the stuff in the back room, because when someone walks in through the door, they're told, you can't go back there. Well, if it's a free store, I feel like everything that is donated should be free. And that's what turned me off. As soon as I went in and I found out that they had this regulation to where this stuff back here doesn't come out here, and then they give the excuse if it hasn't been sorted yet. But I peeked through the back door, and there is amazing stuff back there. There's really nice furniture. There's things back there they do not put out in the front for those who are in need. It was
sounds like you busted
pretty upsetting
their game.
For me.
Yeah, it sounds like you busted their game. That's what it's about. They get first dibs on everything.
Mhm.
So I think that's what.
And I think that happens a lot.
Every community, every community has a discount store and a free store. You donate your stuff and you get a discount. But it seems like the people that work there get first dibs, which I probably don't mind. There's only so much you can use. But now that seems to be another whole level that nothing really good is going out there. It's back there. Maybe they have a place they sell it to, and they get some money for it.
That's what was worrying me, was that these people were donating things, and they have it in warehouses, and I'm wondering how much of that stuff is winding up on eBay or Craigslist.
Right. That's what it seems like. They have a racket going on there. Well, that's sad to hear, and they have their karma, and hopefully they'll get busted or something will change, but. That's sad. Because people who donate to these charities, I know they're feeling good. Well, at least I'm giving it to charity. It's going to someone else. Especially here, like in Maui, when people come and go all the time. There's a lot of stuff that passes through the charitable organizations. I wanted to read a little bit. We'll go back to that in a moment, but I wanted to just read a little bit more about this article. I was still getting horrible interference. I'm not sure what that's about, but whoever's doing that, please knock it off. We're trying to have a show here. But this is from that Benjamin Fulford article, which got posted today, actually, the 21st of February. And it's from a Benjamin Fulford article from the 19th. This is February. It's January. I'm sorry. Today's my sister's birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, Louise. The revolution continues with shipping-free stock plunge, U.S. dollar dumping, $20 in oil, the tax on gold mines, and so more. He says, what the H is going on this planet? There is a systematic effort underway to remove all fraud from the world's financial system. This campaign is now getting to the point where some major financial institutions and countries, including the U.S. corporate government, are about to go bankrupt. This is all part of a hybrid war involving finance, supercomputers, special forces operations, news, propaganda, pinpoint assassinations, and more. Perhaps the most dramatic and underreported new aspect of this ongoing struggle has been the freeze on global shipping. To confirm reports on the Internet of a shipping freeze, this writer called New York K Lines, a major international shipping firm, and was told, "We cannot speak for the whole world, but as far as our company is concerned, with current shipping prices, we will lose money every time we send a ship, so we have stopped." Another major dimension of this hybrid war has been the attack on the oil cartel and control of the petrodollar. It is this attack and not oversupply that is the reason for oil prices plunging to $20 per barrel level. And in the case of bitumen, the lowest grade Canadian oil is $8. And I'll read just a little bit more. This campaign will continue until Saudi Arabia, the Gulf Corporation countries, and the big Kazarian banks go under, according to Pentagon White House. So it goes on and on. But it seems like it's a mixed bag. They're about to go bankrupt. What does that mean? I'd like to throw that back to you guys. What do you think will happen if all this stuff goes bankrupt?
Well,
Karen,
I'll jump in. I'll jump in with that. I'll jump in with that because what's going bankrupt is the U.S. government corporation, United States corporation, not the punchy. We became a corporation, and we've been running under a corporate banks, which is the Federal Reserve System. And they're trying to bankrupt that Federal Reserve System because, of course, it's interested in continuing the petrodollar, continuing the war over oil, and continuing all these practices that are kind of a Ponzi scheme. Eventually, everyone finds out what they're doing. And, you know, a system, any economic system, is kind of based ultimately on that handshake of trust. It's like, it's a trust of consideration of, I'm going to give you this for that. That's a basic thing. If you feel like you're going to get a bad deal and you don't trust the person you're doing business with, then and it becomes the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, and you find out it's a conspiracy, you're not going to trust investing in that or interacting with that anymore. For instance, when I first started paying attention to Benjamin Fulford, the first article I read was how the United States owed China some money, so they sent several pallets of gold to China, and the Chinese cut the bars in half and found out that the gold bars were just lead, or I believe it was some other metal. Don't quote me on this. It was tungsten. It was tungsten on the inside and gold on the outside, like a Twinkie, basically. And so, therefore, of course, they're not worth as much. And that was done in, I believe, the Clinton administration. So now, right, if you owe me money and you pay me with a tungsten gold Twinkie, and I open it up and I find out, do you think I'm ever going to take that kind of payment from you again? Do you think I'm ever going to trust you again? So pretty much these Wall Street guys and these financial guys, after a while, don't even trust each other. So now, how do you keep having a banking system? How do you keep having the system that you had before when nobody trusted each other, right? So now, because I guess the federal government under this federal system has now done so many deals like that nobody trusts them, and the shipping thing is very significant. We're going to see shortages in our stores within a month with this shipping freeze, because that's where when international, they call it the Baltic Dry Index, and if you look, the Baltic Dry Index is ships moving around with shipping containers on them with all kinds of stuff we buy that goes to our store. And there's a freeze because they are so financially strapped. If they send a ship full of goods to the United States and nobody buys it, they lose money. So why should they ship it in the first place, right? So that's very significant what he was writing about. I've been following that story this last week. Look it up, Baltic Dry Index being down. So we're going to start seeing this. And the thing about it is Americans, generally speaking, most of them, pretty much ignore all of that stuff until it hits them personally. And this might be a huge wake-up call for people in the United States that maybe we have a problem. Like Houston, we have a problem with the economy that's bigger than just, suddenly we can't buy. Well, speaking of Twinkies, the Hostess cupcake crisis of a year or two ago when the Hostess almost went under. That'll get everybody riled up. But the fact that our country is being bankrupted is like until it hits us personally, and it's about to in a big way, I believe. And I know lots of financial, economic people are going, it's going to get bad, it's going to get bad. So they've been predicting it for years. Well, the Baltic Dry Index is a very huge indicator, and the loss of the petrodollar and it dropping is a very big indicator. So it's something to watch in the world global market.
And also, is it being orchestrated from somewhere higher up?
That's what he's indicating, that the Chinese white dragon, red dragon, I don't know, all these dragon ones that form this BRICS alliance are crashing the U.S. economy on purpose because it's run by a bunch of mafioso guys and Wall Street. And now we don't call them bankers anymore. We call them banksters, right? So, I mean, they're gangster banksters, and they're going. It seems that they're being phased out, and something else is being put in, I hope. But, boy, it's going to get everybody's attention for sure.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's not chaos. It's just their imposition of order.
Might be a controlled burn. They might be trying to bring it down slow so they can bring something in, because if we know what happened in the from history in the Great Depression, we had people jumping out of windows, and there were some banker suicides, by the way, also bankers being arrested and convicted of fraud. So that's been percolating along for a couple of years as well, if anyone wasn't paying attention.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's significant. If that's the leader of your trust fund or your hedge fund, and he jumps out the window or gets arrested, you should probably pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to know more about your meeting with the Red Dragon people, Janet. I've been very curious.
Well, we've had several shows on it, and it kind of hurt my brain after a while because I was trying to wrap my head around it. To me, it's just totally illogical what's going on here, because one of the things that people always want is goods. And there's some major feedback I'm getting. I'm not sure what's going on. But people always want goods, so whenever we have a major war, if you track history, we go in and kill everybody, rape, pillage, plunder, but the first thing that comes back is commerce, because people like to trade and interact with each other and ultimately fall in love and make babies. and
make a family, make a house, yeah.
Right, make a family, make a house, and they need the service. They need the goods and services, but primarily the goods. So I don't think you're going to wipe out humanity. I think there's always going to be trade. It goes up and down, round and round. I read a series of books by Robert Heinlein about going out in the stars and and they were talking about money and what they would use as a basis for money, and sometimes it's gold. Just here it's gold, and that goes back to the Anunnaki. People go, why gold? It could be anything. Heinlein said, and I think it was Time Enough for Love, he went to a planet and he set up a bank, and at the first point he had the standard was chickens, because they were on a remote location, and so that was the value system, chickens. And then, they got enough chickens, so we changed it to corn, he kept changing it, and people in the town got upset. What are you doing? There's no basic standard for money. What is money? So it was a big lesson. I read that in 1973, and so what is money? What gives it value? What gives it meaning? What's its purpose? And we are the ones that, set the standard ultimately. So we're looking at a system for humanity where everybody gets their needs met, the basic minimum needs. I don't want to call it an income. I just call it an economy. I'd like to address that at least part of this show, because all this talk about the Red Dragon, the Red Dragon concept was that this is an Anunnaki family and an individual, and Dave Schmidt flew 3 times to China and met with this Red Dragon, had the Red Dragon, and he admitted he's an Anunnaki, and they control 95% of the world's gold, and they're going to do a selective release in 1, 2, or 3 phases where they give, I have notes on that somewhere, I don't know, 10,000 people or 20,000 people or 30,000 people, whatever, millions of dollars for their private projects, which are all supposed to be spiritually based and, helping society, helping us learn, grow and evolve and become something other than what we are right now, which is a war-based economy. We're always throwing a war. These systems of depression, repression, war, wiping out everybody, and then afterwards everybody's celebrating, making a lot of babies. You realize when I was a child, born in February 6, 1954, there were about 3 billion people. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but, millions and millions of people died in World War II, and within 10 years we replaced everybody and then some. And that's what humanity does. And that's what we'll probably do unless we completely destroy the planet, which is a possibility. There appears to be some kind of terraforming program going on where there appears to be some other kind of species that's coming in here and perhaps is purposely altering our environment so that we won't be able to breathe it anymore. I don't know. There's a lot of people in my life recently that have died or are having very serious health problems. So there may be something to it. But basically, when I sit here in my little world, I can't hardly verify anything, right? There are so many stories on top of stories, so that's why we do this series of shows, is to try to figure out what's going on. But ultimately, we have to make a decision based on our own personal introspection of the information that is coming into our lives, into this physical form. Where do we want to, what reality do we want to choose for ourselves, or where do we want to go? So it's fine to cathartic and express and woe is me and what's going on and oh my God and and do that. And ultimately, what I think the way out of this is, and I've been studying this now for almost 62 years, is to give us a direction, a win for all potentiality, the possibility of where we can go so individuals can wrap their heads around something outside of this extremely narrow box, which appears to be controlled by some kind of an Illuminati Cabal faction that controls all the religions, all the politics, countries, belief structures, political systems, you name it. It seems to be very tightly controlled, especially the media. And so that's why people have great difficulties going in another direction, because they're a box. Just imagine this box. So that's what Aquarian Radio is about, having people like Karen and Charlotte, so we can look at what's outside of the box, where can people go besides what's being offered, and So if you want to do some more analysis and catharsis, we can do that for a little bit. But at a certain point, I want to go in another direction to solutions. I call them soul solutions. So who wants to take the talking stick? I'm passing it.
I'd like to say something. Before we were going to do the show, I did a meditation earlier, and I asked the question, were the original dragons the ancient ones? And what came to me was humanity may become as wise as a dragon and as gentle as a dove when we recognize our own potential and utilize what it truly means to be human. The dragon can bring wisdom or destruction. And then from research I got, they came here to transform errant energies, thereby reconnecting and reweaving threads long broken to restore that which was lost. And one dragon said that it was easy to become ensnared in the collective thought forms here because the earth energies were hostile to them.
That's beautiful. So, Karen, are you done, Charlotte? What else would you like to say? Go ahead.
Yes. No, that's okay. I'm passing the talking stick to Karen.
Oh, thank you for that. That's nice. I like that because I think ultimately, see, I'm kind of in this interesting position because I'm second-generation conspiracy theorist. My dad was a conspiracy theorist with the John Birch Society, if anybody knows what that is. So at a very young age, I'm hearing about the Federal Reserve System and the Bilderbergers and all that stuff. And the kind of the presentation my father had or philosophy was, that's the way it is. We can only expose it and hope that people see it and then see something different. He didn't really go as far as I did with connecting the idea that this planet has governance from a galactic or solar system level, that he didn't go into the whole ET aspect of it. And I started that journey and then ended up, reading and hearing what Zachariah Sitchin was saying and other researchers, and also what you and Janet and Sasha put out so much material about that prehistory before we get our history books written by either the Darwinists or the creationists, and they fight each other. But there's a whole history before that, and it's a hidden layer under the history that we're taught in school or what's on the History Channel. And basically the idea that there's this really machinated long history before all of this, okay? What I kind of found out is that we've got this monetary system, okay, and that any system that we have beyond nature, like if we're just living in the forest and we're gathering honey and we've got a few goats and maybe we eat certain plants. I mean, that's the most primitive way human beings live, which is actually very connected to the earth. It's the natural way that humans are able to live in certain parts of the world, all the way up to this very sophisticated level of elite kinds of people that have gated communities. And I'm here in New Mexico where Sir Branson wanted to build a spaceport, so we have this empty, giant, enormous spaceport to go to space, and there's no ships available. And the people of New Mexico paid $200 million to help pay for that. So that's that level of the game, and it's kind of disgusting to me to ask the people to pay for something a rich guy wants. A billionaire wants to send millionaires to space, basically. So that weird elite, idealistic level all the way from the primitive level, this is this range of human experience and how we relate to each other. And the thing about it is the macroeconomics is the microeconomics, and microeconomics is how do we live every day. And right now, I know of a lot of people who want to go to a different way of living. They want to live in an abundant economy and a permaculture economy. So what that means is instead of being consumerist, so you get some money and you spend it all every month or whatever, every week, on stuff that's consumable. Like, you buy something, you use it, you throw it away. You might keep it for a while like an appliance, but eventually you throw it away. Versus the idea that if we change our human systems of how we live, we can have a more abundant economy where it's okay if something's not monetized. It's okay if something's not commoditized. It's okay to work with nature's abundance. And so what I would hope would happen is we could find a modern way to be more in tune with the earth. And there are ways of doing that. When you look deeply into how we manufacture things and trade things, we've been made to make a choice towards consumerism, generally speaking, and away from, off-the-grid independent living, but using modern means. So, for instance, using solar panels, wind power, and things like that for our energy. And one great thing about the death of the petrodollar is that we can now monetize other forms of energy, renewable and sustainable energy, instead of constantly going back to oil as the bottom line. That is the opportunity that happens with this change in the petrodollar. So it's really getting an awareness. It's like we have to get aware that we can make the choice as a collective and individually to step by step get persistent intention, and this is the key. Persistent intention and awareness that we want to do something different. And then we're able to do it. Like over time, we're able to make that change. We'll be able to get that solar panel and reduce a little bit of our energy. We'll learn how to reclaim our water. We'll use a compost toilet. There's ways to start getting off the grid and getting away from the consumerist base on personal choices. And there's more of us who could make that choice than there are of them who want us to do the disposable society. So we've got to make a choice inwardly. We might not be able to do it tomorrow, but we can take one step, toward it, or think about it, or have that intention. And it's the same thing with the monetary system. The monetary system is the main means of trading with each other. But if we start producing things ourselves or trading, have a real free store, not a free store where you skim off the top and predate on each other. I believe this. I believe if we have that intention, that there are other entities and beings who will help us in that process, because we are not just subject to these kind of malevolent gangster types that seem to be so prevalent in our planet right now. Is because we're starting to see collectively, this isn't working for everybody. It's not working for me. This isn't working for you. This is shortcutting our children's and grandchildren's future. What can we do that would be different? And start making those choices, and it will influence the universe. And if there are overseers, that maybe if they're very wise, I have doubts about their wisdom. I do, because I look at the way the world is right now, and it's kind of run by gangsters, and I'm going, is this the best you could do for us if you're our overseers? There's a word, responsibility, the ability to respond. I can't, in myself, as a bottom feeder, because I don't have, financial issues. I'm a bottom feeder, I guess. I'm not responsible for the upper levels to make those decisions. I can do my best to make that intention, and I do. But if they have the ability to respond, they have the responsibility to make this a better thing to trade with. And they've made pretty rotten choices, in my opinion. Why haven't they asked the people, like they want to give out millions and millions of dollars to certain people to mete out this abundance? All they've done is made another level of overlords, if you ask me. I don't like it. I say give it to the people. Trust the people. There's lots of people that are good people that want to take the financial means and make family with and trade with. There's some people who are addicts, some people who won't do a good job with making decisions about money. That is always going to be true. But there's a lot more people that would be very hardworking if they had a job, but there's no jobs. So if you gave them the means if they gave them to means to have a basic income, I can guarantee one thing that will go up: volunteerism. Who wants to just sit around the house with your financial, prosperity and just sit there? You're going to just sit there? I mean, some people are. Some people are lazy, but lots of people want to make their community better. They want to help animals. They want to clean up the environment. There's lots of people like that. I talk to them all the time.
They can even take that into consideration for the basic income guarantee, is that maybe community service could be a part of that.
Yeah, it would be. I know people who quit volunteering because they can't afford to because of their financial stuff. They would volunteer a lot more if they had financial support for their costs of volunteering, getting there back and forth by gas and whatever tools they need. I mean, this is what I don't like. It feels like a choke-up situation where they're so afraid of the people doing something wrong or judging us as being bottom feeders or some dumb, unfair thing. At the soul level, we are all part of Source. At the soul level, we are equal.
They don't recognize the equality of souls. They're in hierarchy, and I agree that this whole thing of having another level of people that get the money and they get to mete it out to the rest of the world, that this creates another level of overlords. And so how is that anything different than what we've had in the past? And I agree that there needs to be some kind of basic minimum amount that people get so they have their basic needs. This is ridiculous that we are so primitive and uncivilized that we have people living out in the street and it's, 5 below zero. That's insanity. That's cruelty. We wouldn't even do that to our dogs if we're conscious, and yet we're doing that to people. So we need to do something different. Obviously, none of these things are working. But my question to you, Karen, and perhaps Charlotte, is what do you think would happen if everybody got, let's say, $1,000 a month? Everybody across the planet got $1,000 a month. Or maybe what they got was X for housing, depending on where they lived, Y for food, depending on where they lived, and Z for clothing, depending on where they live, based on the needs of where you're living, some kind of budget. And just like they have the food stamp card, it could be rationed. This is what you get for food, and this is what you get for housing, et cetera, et cetera. If these people are so concerned about micromanaging people, maybe that is an intermediary step we can do. But people are going to want to have luxuries. That doesn't include basic minimum standard doesn't include if you want to ever do anything. So people have to have a way to generate money so that they can do the things they want to do. And that puts in mind my childhood. My parents were poor, and we basically met the shelter and the food and some clothes and the stuff I wanted, but I wanted higher class clothes and I wanted to eat, the basic food. I wanted Hershey bars or Oreos. So I, at a young age, worked. I had a way of earning money to get the tickets to go to the rock concert, right? And to get that French jacket I always wanted, right? So there has to be something that we can go out and put it all back in here. The roller and you everything system.
Hello?
Whoever wants to take it.
Go ahead, Charlotte.
Take the ball. I'm passing the stick.
Go ahead,
Well,
Charlotte.
I had a similar upbringing. I was raised by a single parent. My father died when I was 2. My mother received a Social Security check because he was in the military. That wasn't enough to barely get by, and that's sort of what we were raised on. So I can identify completely with what you're saying, Janet. And yes, if we do have a way of, say, taking care of our basic needs, people are going to want more than that. So if we do have a basic income, they still have to be able to work, and that won't affect their basic income. I think that's going to be a huge part. Karen, you're kind of an expert in this field, so I'm going to pass the talking stick on to you with that.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I have been studying this for about a year, and it's very interesting because I have different opinions on different days depending on, because we don't have one, so it's very theoretical. So one thing that I kind of came down on the idea is that I know people say that people might lose their work incentive to have a basic income guarantee, but I don't believe that because my belief is humans get up and do stuff, okay? And I work heavily in volunteerism, so they'll really work hard for something they believe in, harder than they would a job. So I'm going to go to a really radical idea, and it wasn't mine, and it was Martin Luther King in the last book that he wrote before he was assassinated. And I have to say the basic income guarantee is supported by people of liberal and conservative values. Martin Luther King supported it, I suppose, on the liberal side, if you could say that, and it was supported on the conservative side by Milton Friedman, who was an economist influential on the Reagan administration. But anyway, Milton Friedman was for a negative income tax. So the less you made, if you were having financial difficulties and couldn't get a job or whatever, then you'd have the income tax would be reversed on you to have a basic income. Martin Luther King believed that we should have the basic income not be too minimal where you're still in poverty, because some people simply can't work. They can't work because if they have children and they're single parents, and they're never going to be able to work enough hours to make that work. A lot of people are disabled, and now we have technological unemployment. So his idea was to have the basic income guarantee be a median income, so like lower middle class. And the reason why is because it's not just enough to just have the house over your head and food on the table. If you don't have a social level of income, so you go out once in a while to eat, or you buy something nice for clothing, that's important because that's jobs for the other people. So the people who make the nice restaurant and the people who make the nice clothes, that gives them something to do, right? So by having at least a lower median income, recognizing that some people are not going to be able to make that if they had to make it as a straight-up job, we need to acknowledge that. Right now, we have 1 out of 4 people fully employed with benefits, and other people are depending on them. We have people working 2 or 3 jobs just to make the minimum basic. I have family members who were working poor. I had family members who were working homeless. They were working full time, but because they were living in an expensive area, they literally were homeless. They were having to do that while they were working full time, because they couldn't make enough for housing. I mean, it's really like that out there. So the idea that it be a lower median income means that it gives a little bit of wiggle room for people to not have to worry about working at all and pursue a business, pursue arts, volunteer, for the things that matter in life. If we just meet the basics, we don't really have a fully functional economy. Now, if someone wants a luxury thing, then yeah, okay, they've got to go make a business or find some work and do it that way, and that's great. But we are dealing with that's the start. I see that as the start. But we need to transition into money not being so important. Money is scarcity. Money counts things that are scarce. It's like little monopoly dollars counting something that's scarce. If you have enough of something, you don't count it. It's just there. You know what I mean? Air is just there. Water is now in bottles. We now count water in dollars because it's in bottles. And we have a water war going on.
Can you imagine what our ancestors would think?
Yeah. So water didn't used to be counted the way it is now. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Water was falling on us all the time. Now you have the water wars, and you have people being arrested. In Oregon, that guy got arrested for caching water for his farm. The water droplets now belong to the state, and they're being counted where they didn't used to be. So this is where we're going, is monetizing and commoditizing everything. And we need to go the opposite direction. We need to work with nature's abundance and go towards abundance where you don't have to count it with dollars. So we would start out.
What are we going to do when they bottle air?
Because that's coming.
Start bottling our air.
They have. Did you guys know they have oxygen bars?
Oxygen.
They have a place where you can go where you can inhale pure oxygen, because it's in cities that are super polluted and the air is so crappy. People go inhale oxygen for a while and then they feel better. There you go.
Oh my God! I'm seeing a future of like people walking around with oxygen tanks on their back.
If they keep, we keep the pollution up and the chemtrailing and all that bullshit. Already asthmatics, I'm an asthmatic, are having. I had a lot of trouble when we had air quality alerts, right? And I said stay in my home, and I'd stay in my home with an air filter in order to relieve my symptoms. So, we're looking like fish. We're going to look like we're in an aquarium. We're just running around with a hot air bottle, you know. That could happen.
It's so sad.
Yeah, this is where this could go. I mean, do we want to go there? I mean, as a collective, is that what we want? No, I think
no.
I don't agree to that.
I'm not saying
so basically, where we live in microeconomics. We live about our day-to-day life and how we get our food and how do we. I stopped using the word budget and I use the word provision because you can provision yourself without money sometimes. Sometimes you don't buy the fancy jacket, you go down to Goodwill and hopefully you find it, 20 years later.
Right.
Prince jacket. But no, I mean it's the idea that you can, if we get the idea that we provision our homes, then we start looking at not that it's always money. It's not always money. And that in the future, that would be the way to wean ourselves off of money is to have an abundant, and also to have a completely different view of stuff, where we have more of a sharing economy, where we don't, you have a community situation where not everyone's going to need the carpet cleaner that day, but the community can share it, right? I mean, why couldn't we have more of that way of doing things? And of course, that makes the corporations kind of cringe, but it's like they're not really for us. We have to do this for ourselves. We have to think differently for ourselves as collective humanity than somebody else deciding for us how it is.
It's almost like, before we actually had a different way of doing things. We had barter and trading in the pioneer days, where people would, and then that was, that evolved into our society now, and I'm not so certain that we should have given up the barter trading end of the deal.
Well, I want to throw
my
something.
husband.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, I was just going to say real quick about the barter when they have the. My husband's a war baby, so he grew up with the Victory Gardens. And one person would raise pigs, the other one chickens, the other one, vegetables, whatever. And they traded. That was the only way they could get a balanced diet. Was to trade with each other. So, what are we going to throw out there, Karen?
I was going to, before we were preparing for this show, I was going to throw it into a whole different discussion area of why is gold the basis for the society. So the Red Dragons are saying that they've got enough gold, more than enough gold, to back up the new economy, I guess, that they're planning. And I thought that was interesting in everything that we've studied about the Anunnaki, how they value gold, because we had a gentleman on here, Clyde Crisp, who was talking about monoatomic gold and all of that, because that's at way high up level that most of us don't even have any gold or have very little. We don't understand why they're so covetous of gold and want to make gold the standard of the planet's money. And I was hoping we'd talk about that, because that's the Here Be Dragon's big secret, right?
Right.
And we talked about the fact that the Anunnaki, if in fact the dragons are Anunnaki, then a lot of things fall into place. Now, one of the topics is the idea that the Anunnaki made us, or fashioned us, or pushed us in the direction of being mining gold, right? Instead of growing crops, right? So we're going down. We value this yellow stuff, and we think it's super duper important, even though we don't eat it, and we don't. It's used for a lot of things technology-wise, but other than that, it's not exactly, it's not exactly what everyone needs on the planet. We need food, shelter, but not necessarily gold. And yet we covet it, and we mine it, and all this, and it finally ends up in these hordes of the Chinese, Anunnaki, whatever, dragon, whoever they are, families, who covet this and sit on it. I always say they kind of sit on it like Smaug did in The Hobbit, the big pile of gold. and the fact that they've made something that we actually don't use for our necessities, necessary basic necessities, but yet it's highly prized and highly important. And it's interesting to me because that becomes the meta top of our economy, is hoarding gold, gathering it up, and ending up in these caches. And then we find out that's the Anunnaki, and then we go right back to the oldest story we've got in the Sumerian times and before, of the fact that they wanted the gold, and they come and get it, and they take it to their planet, and it becomes something to bolster their atmosphere, according to Sitchin, but also that they imbibe it. This is what we learned from Michael Hill when he was with us, that they sort of sniff it like cocaine, and they use it to make their lives longer. So now we have that full circle, don't we, of why our economy runs the way it does, because it aggregates the gold top of the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk to you guys about that, because I know you know about that. When you get into Anunnaki studies, you know that the gold is important to them.
Yeah. Right. Also, we were talking. You and I were. Yeah, and you, Karen and I were talking. Yeah, Karen and I were talking about how it also locks them into a frequency that they enjoy. Karen.
Yeah. Gold. If you imbibe gold, you are locked into a certain frequency of living, which keeps you able to appreciate the corporeal things of life, like having sex and having babies, like we do all over the place in our stories, and also eating food and living among us, because gold is a certain frequency, and it seems to be another part of the story is that if they imbibe that, they get to continue the kind of corporeal life that they enjoy without evolving to the next level, which may not be able to have enjoyment of all those things that they like so much. The Inky like pretty women, and they like to rule over us, and they like to hang out and have us serve them. Did you want to talk about that, Janet? Because I know.
Right, and I'm sure that's why the Anunnaki. I once had a conversation with a billionaire lady, and she, they want to have someone to lord over. They have to have someone look their nose down upon. That's part of when you look at their needs. What do they need? You can't meet their needs without somebody suffering, because that's what they think they need. But there might be another need, but they just are so wrapped up in power, control, manipulation, that they, they're very reluctant to let it go unless they're forced to do so. We have a caller, David Uriel, who I think was on one of our shows a long time ago, but a couple months ago. Would you like us to take a question from David?
Yes.
Or a comment?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on one second while I unmute. Hi, David.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Hi.
Hi.
We're having a great time, except we got a bunch of feedback from somebody, but did you have a question or comment?
Well, regarding the monatomic gold. If everybody wants to get a visual on what this monatomic gold does for the Anunnaki and other beings out there, watch the movie Jupiter Ascending. The beings that are involved there. The beings that are involved in there use, it's kind of grotesque in the sense they use humans or other sentient beings and break up their bodies to use their life force energy to sustain them for eons. But in this case, the Anunnaki and others use monatomic gold to do the same thing. It powers their technologies, but it also sustains their... Think of a huge sarcophagus, but lined with this monatomic gold, and the same technology operates this sarcophagus. So you go in there, and then it creates a vibration within the sarcophagus that engulfs the entire physical body, raises the physical body's vibration. And when it does that, it rejuvenates the body, and they have it set to a specific time to where, let's just say you want to rejuvenate back to when you're 30 years old or 28 years old, and it could do that. So that's the purpose of the monatomic gold.
Right. And apparently there are techniques. We had, what was his name? Not Corey Good, but the other one, Randy Kramer, said that he was a super soldier in their program, and once he was about 40 or something, they rejuvenated him back 20. But he didn't tell us exactly what it was, but apparently our military has the ability to rejuvenate individuals using them and reverse the aging process and restore them to their, their peak. I'm not sure who's got this feedback on it. Maybe what we could try, Karen, is let's mute in between when we talk or something. That might help with this feedback we're getting there.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Okay, good.
Yeah, me too.
So, let's go round table here. I'll mute now. Somebody else address what David just said. And I'm going to mute for a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like to address it because Charlotte and I, on a different radio program, a couple of years ago, we interviewed Dan Winter. And Dan Winter's, he really has a lot of information about basically the energetic cohesion, how energy makes cohesion and makes things work properly, and biosystems that makes it healthy, and that he just really goes out there to even talk about the biocohesion of various races and things that the Anunnaki were actually struggling with their biocohesion. But one of the things that stuck with me was sometimes we have science fiction tell us science fact, but we don't know it, right? I was a big fan of the Frank Herbert series Dune, and I know you guys can watch that. And they had this substance called spice, and I straight up asked Dan Winter, is spice in this book the same thing or has the same properties as monatomic gold? And he said yes. So I further studied that, and what it was monatomic gold had a cohesion effect to where it did exactly what you were saying, David, and also that it facilitated star navigation, the ability to navigate craft. In the higher you go in technology, a few hundred years from now or 1,000 years from now, in human technology as we know it, we start using these energies to power our craft, to enable navigators to be able to navigate the craft. So that's something to pay attention to, and that the science fiction stories are trying to tell us maybe this is already happening. So when we're talking about the secret space program, we're talking about that we have a front, space program, NASA. We have a front, lifestyle of we have, up to now we have cell phones, and we have, we're starting to get electric vehicles with Elon Musk's Tesla program and stuff. So our cutting edge stuff that we know about is not the cutting edge stuff that exists. We're kept in the dark and then dribbled out technology to kind of upscale us to a certain extent. But there's something called a breakaway civilization of humanity who's getting to use very much more advanced and exotic technology that we don't have access to. But it's based on cohesion of energy and utilizing monatomic gold. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And we do have testimony of several people coming out saying that there's an age regression technology because the cells have like a memory of what they were when they were 28, and then they move on and we start to break up and get old, and our telomeres, which is like described to me as the shoelaces of our DNA. So if you have shoelaces and you lose that little end, they get all frayed and they don't work right and you can't lace your shoe. It's a sort of the same idea, is that the telomeres, as you get old, it makes you age, and that the monatomic gold repairs that damage, and apparently someone has a way to accelerate that. So therefore, you go back to an earlier, younger DNA sequence, and you are younger. That's the way I understand it. So if gold is the thing doing that, no wonder the people who have the money and the elite, no wonder they want to, take everything we got in order to get the gold, in order to get this treatment and live longer than us and lord over us. Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't seem very fair.
Well, exactly. That here's the thing. There's a theory in magnetic therapy or magnetic therapy that the cells of the body, when it first becomes incarnated, each cell has its own power source where it constantly keeps the cell powered up, and when the cell begins to break down, then the power of this power source regenerates the cell. But as the reason we age is because this power source starts becoming depleted, and as it becomes depleted, then the cell can't repair itself. So now magnetic therapy, the magnetic energy powers up this battery, for lack of a better word, for the cell. So now the cell is able to begin to repair itself like it used to. But now you add the monatomic gold, and it supercharges this power source. It's like a huge capacitor. But instead of being able to store, let's just say, 80 years of energy to be able to live up to 80 years old, you can store up to 200 years of energy. And then when it starts getting depleted, then you power it. So this could go on for eons.
Thank you for sharing that, David. Any comments, anybody else?
Well, he was talking about
I just want to say I have
Go ahead, Janet.
Because that seems to be cutting back down on the feedback time, the feedback we're getting. So I'll come when I'll unmute. I bet you'll hear that deep when I have something to add. But go ahead, Karen, you carry on because I have to mute. It's coming from my end. But go ahead.
Go ahead, Charlotte, and share what you were talking about.
Yes, he was talking about the capacitance. The Anunnaki have a much higher capacitance than we do, and I'm wondering if the gold has something to do with that. What do you think about that?
Yes, it is.
Like they have a higher electric. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yes, they do, and hence they're them being taller as well. They have a higher vibration physically. So when they use the monatomic gold, it helps them sustain that vibration. But here's a fallacy that even the Anunnaki didn't foresee. They were thinking that by taking the monatomic gold, it will help them raise their vibration even more, so they can reach higher levels of spirituality, and that didn't happen. And Enki found this out. So that's where, by trying to create another physical vessel, i.e. humanity, he knew that being able to incarnate into a human physical body, maybe it would help the soul begin to learn other life lessons. He knew that to be able to evolve spiritually, it is the soul that needs to evolve. So it was an experiment that really many didn't know about. There was only a few that knew about this. Ningasita was one, Inanna was one, and Ninmah was one. And Leo may have known, but I think he found out after the fact. So true, what's the word for it? To be able to live, true longevity. They figured out that it's not so much sustaining the physical body, but helping the spirit evolve. But unfortunately, because of the physical characteristics of this universe, to do that, you have to jump from one physical body to another. You could live eons, but for whatever reason, the physical body cannot evolve past its original creation. Kind of like a car. Say you get yourself a Ford Mustang. Well, the Ford Mustang can only be upgraded so much, and after that, it can't go anywhere. It's reached It's reached its engineering capability. You can't upgrade it anymore. And the Anunnaki reached that point from a physical sense. So they would think the monatomic gold would help them evolve even more, but they reached a point where they cannot. And they were looking to their new creation, because humanity was comprised of not just Anunnaki, but it's also comprised of the sentient beings that existed on the planet, and it's also comprised of the DNA of other celestial beings, to include the blue avians. So humanity has the capability to evolve even beyond the Anunnaki, physically, and definitely spiritually.
Could you speak to what you know about the blue avians for just one moment?
Sure.
Yeah, because they're kind of new to me. I know about other races, but I've been hearing about that, and I was curious.
The blue avians happen to be one of the oldest of the sentient beings after the universe was first created. A universe created, then sentient beings started evolving. They're one of the first ones that evolved and became spiritual and moved beyond. So at that point, they actually became one of the elders, or the group elders that oversee this universe. Now, I don't know if they see other universes, but I do know that they do oversee this universe. They see things from the macro standpoint, so they make sure that harmony and balance is maintained within the universe according to the universal plan that all souls agreed to before the universe was created. So they kind of have the master plan sitting there. But they know that each soul or sentient being has its own personal plan that's in accordance with the universal plan. So if they follow the normal plan, then they're fulfilling their part of the bigger plan. But the ego likes to kick in and say, well, let's mix things up. I want to try something different. And sure, free will allow you to do that, but only for so long. If you go beyond what your chosen plan is, then you start causing anomalies in the universe matrix, causing imbalances.
Yeah.
And that's when the blue avians start coming in. The blue avians start showing up at the time of when there's going to be a major shift or a major chapter that's about to end in the universal plan, and then it's going to shift into the next chapter.
Makes sense. I think I like the idea of each person having a plan in their incarnation. One of the things I don't care for philosophically when people say, oh, planet Earth is overpopulated and a whole bunch of people need to die to make the Earth be in balance. And I have difficulty with that because I have people in my family who are disabled, and when they had some kind of genocide, well, first of all, I'm Native American. They genocided about 100 million of us. And then the Irish, they killed about 5 million, and the Jewish people, they killed about 5 million. And it's like, maybe that's in the master plan or whatever, but to me, if we have 7 billion people on the planet, probably we have 7 billion life plans to learn whatever it is we need to learn, and whenever we learn it, then we'll go back into balance with the Earth in whatever configuration that is needful. In other words, if somebody believes a bunch of people have to die in order for the world to work, then they need to volunteer and be the first one to off themselves, as far as I'm concerned. But the thing is I think if we have 7 billion people, maybe we have 7 billion incarnational needs, and then maybe we'll make a different number later. But the idea is that I like that idea because I feel for my own life like, there is some kind of plan. I've had gone in a certain direction, and suddenly something intervenes, and I go totally in another direction, and it turns out to be the right thing. That's happened to me many times. Or survived something that maybe normal people wouldn't have survived that thing, some disease or whatever, and I'm still here to do what it is I need to do. And then I've known people that were getting to the end of their incarnation, and they were ready to go. You knew that they had done everything that they felt they needed to do, and then they go on to transition to the next thing. But we have very short, very dramatic lives that are busy because we don't have a lot of time, and we do learn a lot in a short human iteration. We learn a lot of things, and one of the things that I suppose if you had a very long lifetime, you wouldn't push yourself to learn and grow in certain ways that you would if you just didn't have a lot of time. So I like what you said, David. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. There's obviously much more that's going on here. Charlotte and I have been discussing several things. I'm Central American as well as Spanish, so most people know me as Eagle Heart.
Oh, great! Thank you.
So, but there's a major shift that is occurring as we speak, and that's why the blue avions are here.
Yeah.
But the blue avions are kind of overseeing the other galactic councils to make sure that the shift occurs with the minimal amount of stress possible. There is something that is, I say, unfortunate, because the human psyche always has to be pushed to the precipice of its demise before it will make a change. And it's inherent in the ego. I mean, the ego is doing its part because it's trying to protect the physical vessel. But at some point, the ego has to learn to say, you know what, I need to let go and trust the soul.
Yeah.
And we are approaching that precipice as we speak. But all it takes is just a few souls in this world to make that jump, that leap of faith, and then the others will see and go, oh, I guess it's not really that bad. And then they'll do that, and then the domino effect will occur. But before an old paradigm is able to shift into a new paradigm, there's always a time of disruption that occurs, and that disruption, we perceive it as chaos. We think that the world is going to end. Oh, it's the end of the world as we know it. Well, yeah, the world as we know it is ending, but then there's going to be a new way. We just have to have faith that the new way is better, and it always is. The energy never goes from high to low. It always goes from low to high. It may fluctuate in between, but at the end, it's always at a higher vibration. But the only way you're going to know that if you go into your heart. The heart is literally the divining rod in all this. The heart doesn't get swayed by the ego. It doesn't get swayed by the universe's energies in here, or even outside of time-space. So it is literally a chamber where you can decide where you're going to go. And it has all your programs that you need to be able to upgrade your physical body, make the changes that you need to change to be able to adapt to the new energy, the higher vibration. But we have to go there.
Yes. Good. That's good word. Thank you. Charlotte, did you want to make a comment?
A lot of people are having difficulty with that transition, too, because I'm getting messages from people who do not know what's going on with them. They think they're going crazy. I've experienced things like this since I was a child, so it's just natural to me, but they're experiencing things as an adult that they've never experienced before. And I try to be reassuring in my messages, and a lot of people, I've noticed huge amounts of people talking about being dizzy. That seems to be such a common thing now. Someone will say, I'm dizzy, or I feel like I have vertigo, I'm dizzy. I hear that all the time, family members, friends, people out in the store. It seems to, and I don't know what's going on with that. David, do you have any idea?
Yes, it's all part of the same transition. There's integrations going on at this moment right now that is affecting this planet, but because we live on this planet, we're a part of it. So it's going to happen. So we're shifting at the same time as this planet is, and it all because we back in December 21, 2012, we moved into the ecliptic of our galaxy.
David, I had a question.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts about the Dragon societies and groups as well?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
please tell us what your observation is.
The dragons. Well, I have the Asian dragon symbol that as a kid has always been following me around, always. And at some point I kind of denied it, and then it started to go away, and I realized that it wasn't supposed to go away. And it came back to me with a message saying, the smallest of things can always block. I can't even remember it now. And they're gonna beat me in the head tonight too. The smallest of things can always block good fortune.
Wow.
And basically, this thing was coming towards me, and I became fearful. And I picked up a rock, and I threw the rock at it, and it went into its throat, and it started gagging and choking. And its color was a bright emerald green with bright reds and so forth. But it was flying in the air, and then it stopped, looked at me, and then its color started dulling and fading. So then it turned around, started going away, and then I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You scared me. You caught me by surprise. So it stopped and turned around, and then it just coughed up to the dragon. It was a pebble. To me, it was a rock. The dragon was a pebble, and then it looked at me and opened up its eyes, and I just heard loud and clear, just remember, the smallest of things can always block your goodwill, your good fortune, and your luck.
Wow.
So it was a big message.
Buddy. I just want to let you know I was muted off for about the last 20 minutes. I couldn't get back on. So you guys, Karen, thank you for carrying on, and Charlotte and Eagle. What's Eagle Heart? Eagle Heart, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for carrying on. We're getting a lot of feedback, so chat saying that. So thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. I'm not sure what's going on with the sound. A lot of technical difficulties. We have about a half an hour left in the show. Where do we want to go with this dialogue? Karen, do you have something in mind?
Yeah, I would say.
To cover.
Yeah, well, I would say for people to start looking at this Dragon Society thing, I believe that we're going to see and hear much more of it in the near future. I believe United States of America citizens, we're in for a roller coaster ride this year of our economy. I believe everything to me, like we're talking about the Anunnaki, my own Anunnaki contact experiences, almost the first thing that was said to me is that it's factions. And that made a lot of sense when I studied about Enki and Enlil and all of them. The family that was the Anunnaki dealing with Earth was very factional. One of the big factional talking points was, what do you do with the humans? You know, we made some humans. It's like when you make a baby and you didn't really intend to, but here it is. We are their child race, and the impression I got from my contact was that they thought of us akin to toys or pets or servants. Initially, our interaction with them was and they seem to have broken some universal law or some galactic rule to make us in the first place. And the karma that comes from that is now they're responsible for us, just the same as if you make a child, you're responsible financially and every other way for that child. Even if somebody else raises the child, you're still responsible. And so they've tried to run away from that. The flood came. They were going to wipe us all out. But a higher order, being the Galzu, came and gave the opportunity for humans to be saved, and now we came up from those numbers since the deluge time to our 7 billion numbers that we have now. And one of the things Michael said is that Nibiru, if it's coming from Nibiru, it has this huge elliptical orbit. They come back around, they leave us. We're kind of feudal, and we have villages, and we have kings over the lands, and we're kind of feudal, right? They come back around, we're trying to do space travel. You know, we've really advanced quite a bit and grown quite a bit spiritually. Not all of us. There's a whole branch of us that are very untamed, free-range, free-will humans that many in the positive and long for freedom. There's freedom beats in the heart of humanity. But seldom do we really experience it. We always seem to be under some kind of control system. The monetary system acts as a control system so that we behave ourselves, I guess. I don't know. We do what somebody wants us to do. But, you know, as we peel away...
The initial controls came into place because there were so few of them and so many of us. And we hear stories of, like, the Battle of Troy. And the gods and goddesses were literally in that battle, but it became quite evident that they were capable of getting injured and even killed. So they had to go behind the scenes because while they were long-lived, they were not invincible. They could be hurt. They could be killed. So that's why they started this massive control system of religions, countries, cultures, races, etc., to divide and conquer, keep us in a continual state of disarray so we never get organized enough to understand what's going on at the higher level. And so we have these short little lives like June flies, or think of it like our dog. You know, our dog or cat lives between 10 to 15 years, and that's it. And they don't have as great a perspective as humans do that live to be 50 to 100 years. But then put that in perspective with these Anunnaki, they have this vision that's hundreds of thousands of years. They came here 450,000 years ago, and those characters that founded this planet are still alive. Enki and all those, they started here. Who knows how long they lived? Millions of years, billions of years. We don't really know. We don't have this part of our historical records. So they have this control mechanism, and it's psychology. The religious programming is a psychological manipulation. There is spirituality, which confuses people because we do, as human beings, have a connection to God's source, universal consciousness. That was part of the design. Humans have the ability to hold the highest level of, non-physical vibratory frequency all the way to source, as well as the lowest, deepest density level of 3D physicality in this container called human beings. And that's the end result of an experiment that's been going on for billions or trillions of years in the cosmos to find a being that I call it, that can hold heaven and earth, that can hold the whole range of the continuum in one being. And that's what's so special and magical about us. And that's why the Galzu, they kind of duped and tricked the Anunnaki into thinking, there's an illegal species. But actually, this was the end result of a universal experiment, an ongoing program to create this divine people that we are capable of becoming. And we just have to we have to throw off our shackles and wake up, be conscious. And that's what's the danger. We become aware, it's like the genie out of the bottle. It's never going back in. And then the game is over. But part of us likes the game. If you think of the continuum as having this divine play, what we call Leela, that we all co-created together, the arena upon which we can play out existence and have experiences and, experience emotions and have things to do, there's a part of us that doesn't want the game to be over either. So once we get to that point of analysis, we can understand, there's no victims here. And take back our power. And where do we want to be? What do we want to do? Go ahead.
Yeah, what's interesting, Charlotte and I were just discussing exactly that in regards to the factions that are occurring right now. There's factions within the Anunnaki, even to this day, that they're trying to position themselves for better control. But yet there's another faction that come from the Enkyites that are trying to fulfill. They're trying to resolved quantum entanglement that they created when they first came into this, not just the solar system, but when Enki recreated the Earth, created life, or brought life back onto this planet, and then created humanity. Charlotte and I were discussing, well, if you were an advanced sentient being and you wanted your creation to evolve to its highest potential, knowing that some of the monarchy had other plans, but you have this love for this creation that you have made, and Galzu has been guiding you the entire time, how would you share this knowledge and this wisdom that this advanced sentient being has to a newly created beings on the planet? Well, you would have to first build a foundation for them to be able to begin to understand what's being shared with them. And it turns out it's in a form of religion. But the religion was never meant to be maintained the entire time. It was meant to build a foundation only. Once that foundation was made, then the new creation of humanity was supposed to evolve from that, go beyond that, raise its vibration, and go and stretch limbs as far as possible. If at any time if it were to fall, then it would just fall back to its foundation and go, okay, I'll just start again and try a different path. But the powers that be,
spiritual practice, the original spiritual practice was Tantra, and Tantra does not need a intermediary. It doesn't need a priest or priestess or anybody that gets in your way of your direct connection to Source, to God's Source and universal consciousness. It was the later when they started to divide and go into different sub-factions and war against each other, which basically was Inanna was the one that founded the temples in India in Khajuraho. Those are all her temples. She got into a battle with Marduk, and that's where it started to break down to a whole different level in the wars of the gods. And so Marduk got a little bit full of himself, became like a megalomaniac. He was tired of being overlooked for rulership of the Nibiru and of the earth, and so he decided at one point that he was going to take over, and all the gods and all the actions of those before him, he attributed to himself. So monotheism was born. He became the one god. So we can track all this down, and then, of course, we have the further warping and manipulation of the Jesus story, which was probably actually Enki's story, and it got so warped into this mythology that we are following, and billions of people are following the three major religions, which is like Orwell's 1984. It wasn't three major countries, it was three major religions that keep us in a continued state of war. So that's, what's going on there. It was just a manipulation and control. What better way to control the masses than by manipulating what they feel, which is the spiritual connection to Source, to each other, and to, universal consciousness, and lower it down into this battle between the gods, who are just all these Anunnaki factions, and the warping of the story to make it one god. This whole mythology, it's mythology, but it has truth in it. And that's why people buy it and swallow it, and they embrace it, and they live it, and they fight and they die for it. But
I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, we're going to become conscious of the game. This is a game within the game within the game. And then we can embrace true spirituality. But the gods didn't want to be they didn't want to be worshipped initially. That came much later.
Yes, they were supposed to be for a bird to be used. They wanted to be just moderators. They were just sharing the information to this new creation. The new creation started to adore them, and at first, yes, the moderators were like, no, we're helping you become like us. But then the struggles began, the infighting between families, and the factions started developing. So then those factions realized, hey, we can use this thing that we call religion now We'll control them. We'll make them take sides. And then they started fighting. We, humanity, started fighting the war. And now, as they left, they left and just sit in the background. And here we are still fighting these wars. And now we don't even know why. We've forgotten why we're fighting these wars.
They didn't all leave. They didn't all leave. There was only a faction that left, and they're back. They're all back now. That's just what Event 12 was about. Not only the reset of the galactic core, but the return of all the different Anunnaki factions. And
well, that's why they're in the background. They're there, yeah.
Well, they're now taking it back and making amends between the two factions, and that's part of what they're covering in the Linkage Institute that was left to us by A.R. Gordon. And so that's what's coming up next with this global reset, economic reset, and the Dragon family is coming forth, and they're saying that they're here to make amends and correct these things and restructure. But I don't trust any of them. I mean, I love and adore Enki, but I still think they're all like human beings, and every human being alive maximizes their own interests for the most part. So in what way is even Enki going to maximize his own interests? That's what we're looking at, even though he's the good guy. Boy, I got a lot of feedback, so I'm going to put it on me. Somebody else can take it. We got 15 minutes left.
Well, just to let you know that I posted something on the chat here for Skype, and apparently I'm trying to get more confirmation of what's going on. What I'm referring to is apparently there's quite a few empty cargo ships docked, import exports, global concerns. The store chains are shutting down. Oil prices obviously in the negative. So the entire Atlantic Ocean apparently does not have any ships going across it at all.
Yep.
Yeah, we were talking about that at the beginning of the show. Janet was reading about that.
Yep.
So that's the beginning of it. That's the beginning of the reset. If this can be confirmed, then it's only a matter of time now. And
I couldn't get Hershey bars at Costco.
Wow.
To get Hershey bars, I'm going to go through withdrawal. I was like, what?
Wow,
anyway,
so we can get the food of the gods in.
The food of the gods, yes.
Hershey bars. And also my salad dressing. I mean, we're going to the stores already, and it's like there's no explanation. It's like, where are these items that we've been consuming for the last 10 years? Right? They're not available. So something's going on.
Yeah, Jenna, you're going to really feel it because you're over in Hawaii. So without the transport ships, you're going to feel it first.
Yeah, in the Pacific. Yeah, the same thing's happening in the Pacific, I do believe. It's a global phenomenon of the shipping thing, and we're going to feel it within a few weeks. I mean, literally, this stuff is, for instance, Walmart is closing 200 stores, and Walmart put a lot of stores out of businesses in many small towns, and my belief is that they're closing 200 stores in order to take the inventory from those stores and put them in the remaining stores so that they still have full shelves. I think it's psyop on their part, because if they don't do that, people are going to go to the Walmarts like they're used to doing, especially low-income people do at the beginning of the month with their food stamps, and they just buy out all the cheap stuff. They're going to go to Walmart like they always do, and that by February, definitely by March, if this continues, even the stores that are remaining aren't going to have stuff. It's about to get very public and very interesting, and going to wake a lot of people up. We're not going to be able to sit there and pretend this isn't happening anymore. So it's coming. One thing I wanted to say, too, is that I feel like there is a karmic thing that is happening in the idea that the elite have pretended that they didn't have any responsibility towards the rest of us, and that word bottom feeder that Charlotte told me about. I've seen that word bandied about. by elite people, which is a really terrible thing to say about your fellow humans.
It really is.
But one thing I wanted to say about the space thing. Now, my research recently is into NASA and the whole Apollo era, and it's interesting because when the last Apollo mission was coming home, Apollo 17, during that transit back from the moon, a voice came on a broadband channel that was picked up by ham radio operators and by mission control, and it said, basically, a voice came on and said, "Don't come back, you're not ready yet." Immediately, the Apollo program was done. They had 3 more missions on the assembly line building the craft, and we never went back to the moon. And that's now all these many years later, we have Sir Branson and the rest of them trying to commercially go out into space, and their craft crashed, and their spaceport's not as busy as they thought it would be here in New Mexico. And I wondered to myself, what is the passport to space? Like, what do we got to do as a race to be ready? And it hit me. It's the fact that we have this imbalance in our society. We're hierarchical. We have some people starving in the streets, many, many millions, many people going hungry, many people going without health care, education, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, while we have what my father called billionaires with 10 cups. They're billionaires, but they ask for public money to build a spaceport or a football stadium or an Olympic stadium. They take the public money to do those things, and then the circus goes out of town, and that town is left with this derelict, Olympic stadium or whatever, and they've displaced the people that used to live there. And this constant imbalance between the top levels and the lower levels being so disparate, to me, the passport to space is a race, needs to feed and clothe and house and give education and health care to every member of its society, or it is a barbaric society that should not be allowed to leave its planet. And the pattern that we see throughout the space program and now, I think, proves my point. Why would they let us space if we can't do basic needs for every individual in our collective? So I think that goes along with all of this, is that we've let these overlords rule us, and we need to grow up and become a mature society that doesn't have this disparate energy with all the beings that are incarnated here.
Well, exactly. That we have to build a foundation first on this world before we're even able to launch. So it's not only figurative, but it's literal now. If we want to go into space and meet our galactic brethren, then we must build a foundation. We must build a station where it is solid. I mean, that all the programs that this world need to be organic and they need to be renewable. That means for people, processing everything. Like how the Earth has renewable resources, like in rain, the cycle of rain. Then our programs that we have for humanity must follow that same template. It has to be renewable.
I was just checking this article about nothing is moving. That's from 10 days ago. And there's only 2 places it's out, and it's the same article repeated. I would like to see, before I back something like that, have 3 or 4 sources of the same information. Maybe we can research this before our next show and confirm it. But it says that there's not a single ship moving for the first time ever, but it's dated January 11th, which is 2 days ago. So it's kind of suspicious. But if someone out there has more information on this Baltic dry crash of the ships not traveling at all anywhere in the North Atlantic, perhaps the world, I'd like to hear about it. You can write to us at aquariumradionetwork@gmail.com, and we'll update a report and update our website on this. Okay, back to you guys. We have about, it's 4:53, so we have about 7 minutes segments. Back to you, Karen.
Well, Karen.
Go ahead, Charlotte.
Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. What I was gonna say is, you had a very valid point about how we are not taking care of everyone on this planet, and then that brings us to disclosure, because everyone is fighting for disclosure. We all want disclosure. The government's not going to give us disclosure. We know that, or if they do, you and I talked about that. It's going to be trickled down. It's going to be controlled. It's not going to be what we're after. And then I've often said, okay, if you guys are there, why aren't you just making yourself known? Just land somewhere, Central Park, tell everyone, hey, we're here. But that brings us back to the barbaric society. Would they want to land in Central Park?
I don't know. I think we have 25 million estimated people that are getting contact on a regular basis. I think disclosure is not going to come from top down. However, we have reports now that Hillary is going to have that as part of her campaign, or she already has announced it, that she's going to get behind Area 51 and the Roswell crash.
Absolutely. Yeah, the government knows all about it, but I do feel like our citizens are getting contacted, and the disclosure that's happening seems to be on an individual level. They're contacting individuals on an individual level, and maybe that's the best way for disclosure to happen. Maybe the people have to bring disclosure forward.
We are disclosure. That's what I've been saying. We are disclosure, because the pattern of contact has been way on a different scale and way different than the idea that a ship will land on the White House lawn. By the way, the White House lawn is a no-fly zone, so they'll get shot down. But the deal is that the pattern of contact has been many, 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 many species, millions and millions of people. All of us here are somewhat involved in the experiencer movement, where we're beginning to talk to each other. That's important. Just talk to each other instead of being, I've had this experience, and if I say something, everybody's going to think I'm a kook, because we've had all of this societal pressure, which is, by the way, by design, to make us feel to have ridicule of each other. Oh, there's your tin hat, were you anal probed, all that stuff. No, here's the deal, is that they can't do that for us. We have to do that for us. We have to admit to each other that we've had these contact experiences, and you get to compare our world paradigm to their world paradigm. And the reason why they don't want us to know that is because we find out they do feed, clothe, house, and provide for all of the citizens of their collective. And that's kind of embarrassing to the leadership here. So I think the disclosure goes hand in hand with the reset of the economy, which goes hand in hand with a huge consciousness raising on the part of humanity. And some people talk about something called the event. That it's like that last snowflake lands on the avalanche, and all of this information starts flowing, and people wake up. The later we do it, the more exciting it's going to be. So yeah, I think I'm telling my stories, and I know Charlotte and Janet, and I'm sure David. We're all telling our stories and telling our truth to each other, and that is going to be part of the changes, in my opinion.
Well, as the Anunnaki shared with me months and months ago, there's going to be a trigger. Everyone is doing what they're supposed to do, and a reawakening. But there's going to be a final trigger that's going to truly awaken the majority of people. And the message was, look to the stars for the coming things to be. And they kept it.
Okay, we're running out of time. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're running out of time, so everybody, we have like 30 seconds to wrap it up. Go ahead, David. 30 seconds.
Nope. Let's look to the stars for the coming things to be. That will be the trigger for the full awakening.
Thank you. Charlotte.
Something David said earlier, and I had posted that to my wall a while ago, so I thought that was pretty amazing, was at the precipice, we change.
Okay, Karen.
I would say that the truth is in each person. If you go inside to your innermost self and you say, this is my truth, and then you become bold and you share that with someone, there's more and more people you can trust with that. Share your truth, be your truth, and the truth will set you free, right?
Yes, it will. All right, so there's another very successful show. Sorry for all the sound. I'm not sure what's going on. We will be back tomorrow with Experience Network with John Polk and Karen Christine Patrick and special guest, and I forget his name. It's on AquarianRadio.com. Please check that out. We'll be back again next Thursday and Friday again for more shows. So thank you very much for joining us on We the Anunnaki. Much love and blessings and aloha. This is Janet Carelison. Yeah, who am I? Janet Carelison. Good God. Aloha.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Say
Bye.
aloha.
Aloha.
Earning an executive MBA at Georgetown isn't the path of least resistance, but it does come with the greatest reward. Benefit from our strong alumni network, renowned faculty, DC location, and global residencies. Get started at choosegeorgetown.com/EMBA.